Well, hello, Inside Out. Hello, hi. Hello, hi. How we doing? How we feeling? Hi, guys. So it's my first time here. Hey, haven't ever hung out with y'all. Now, I'm not new to Inside Out, but definitely new to Brownsbridge Inside Out. My name is Matt. I got to lead Woodstock City Inside Out for the last 4 years. I don't know if you're cheering for that because Inside Out because of me or because you ever been there. That doesn't make sense, but hi, except for Larissa, because hey, you go to Woodstock. It's fine. So I just want to say hey because I'm really excited to hang out with y'all. Heath is at the beach right now. That big jerk. No, he deserves it. He deserves it. Happy Father's Day, Heath. It's your first one. As Andy said, I have 17 kids. That's not true. I have 5. And we are always tired. It's lovely. But I'm curious, how many of you have already gone to the beach? Anyone already? All right. So she proudly like, yeah, that's right. Got my tan too. How many of y'all are spending every day at the pool? Anyone spending every day at the pool? A few of you? What are you doing in your summer besides sleeping? I don't understand. Hey, another thing that's happening today, we talk about Father's Day, but today also we really need to talk about the fact that today is Juneteenth. And so if you don't know what Juneteenth is a big day. It is now finally, as of last year, a federal national holiday, but today's the day that we celebrate the fact that slavery was completely legally abolished 160-something years ago. Why we're still figuring that out, I don't know. But in 1865, Abraham Lincoln went to Galveston, Texas, and made it officially illegal. It is no longer something that is allowed. It is abolished, and that's a big thing that we get to celebrate. So happy Juneteenth as well. Yes, that is something we should cheer for. Now, I am excited to hang out with y'all to keep this idea going, this conversation going that Lauren kind of started last week, this idea of growing and how you can grow in your faith and what it takes for you to grow in your faith. And I thought a little bit of my story about when I actually started growing in my faith, because it wasn't when I was in your seat. I did not. Now, I grew up in Gwinnett County, so I'm kind of from this area as well. I'm an all-Atlanta fan. That's what we do. It's a tragedy until this past year. But I grew up around here, grew up going to church and all that, and I never grew in my faith until I got to college, and I had someone challenge me with something. He asked me what I was reading, and he was like, Matt, listen, all leaders are readers. So what are you reading? And I was like, who cares? I don't know, man. And I was an English major in college, so I was like, well, here, how about this? I'll just give you something really profound. And I told him when I was reading, and I said, I'm reading the Chronicles of Narnia. And he was like, are you 7? He's like, no. You need to shut up with that shade. I don't want to receive it. And I was like, I don't know what's not profound about a talking lion, Kevin. And then I thought I'd rebound the question. I was like, well, what are you reading, Mr. Spiritual? And he said, the knowledge of the holy. And I was like, come on, man. Like, that's not even fair. And so he slides it across the table, because of course he had it with him. He said, open it up, look at it. I was like, all right, so open it up. And the first line of the first page on this book by this guy, A.W. Tozer, changed my life. Sitting at the Panera in Lawrenceville, Suwannee, in Gwinnett County, it changed my life. Because in there, it has this quote that I've memorized, and it's something that I think is going to land for us today. And it says, whatever comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And say it again for the people in the back. What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And so I started to realize that my thoughts and what I know to be true about God matters greatly, because it affects everything of how you approach your faith. If you believe that God isn't for you, then whenever something happens to you, you're going to think that God must be against you. If you don't believe that God is loving towards you in everything that he does, then whenever something doesn't go your way, you're going to think that he must be against you. But if you think and you believe that God is loving and kind towards you fundamentally, then everything that happens, you start to view through that filter. And so for me, it started to change my life. And see, what I started to understand is something that I want you to understand tonight for what we're going to talk about, is that faith begins with knowledge. Your faith as a high school student begins up here. It begins with knowledge. But for a lot of people, and maybe for you, this has actually become a disqualifier from you ever even approaching Jesus and the idea of faith. I had a friend in high school, his name's Brian. And Brian, forever, we were friends since we were 9 years old. I was like, Brian, come to church with me. And he's like, no. So next year later, like, Brian, you should come to church with me now. No. We get to high school. I'm leading FCA. Brian, you should come to FCA with me. No. And so finally, I'm like, after years of this, why do you always tell me no? Like, are you that awful of a friend? And he was like, no, I really like hanging out with you. I'm terrified to go, and then someone asks me something, and I have no idea what to answer. And I was like, oh, that actually says a lot about the way that I think a lot of people view faith. Because faith begins with knowledge. But the thing that I wish Brian understood, and the thing that I want you to understand right off at the top, is that you can know a lot about Jesus. You can know a lot about him, but have no real faith in Jesus. And so for Brian, the idea of knowledge, yes, it's the beginning of your faith, and yes, whatever comes into your mind whenever you think about God is the most important thing about you. But for him, it became this push away. It became this disqualifier to ever even approaching the idea of faith. But this is actually the opposite of what's true. Because see, James is the brother of Jesus who would sit there and spend the rest of his life commentating on how to live this life, how to grow in your faith, how to do the things necessary for you to have a faith in Jesus. James himself talked about the idea that simply just believing things about Jesus and knowing things to be true about him, it means nothing. Here's actually what he says. He says, oh, okay, so you believe that there is one God, that God the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, you believe there's one God. And all of them say, good. It's like this super sarcastic, like passive-aggressive grandmother answer, like, good for you, sweetheart. Yeah, you believe there's one God? Great, that's awesome. Even the demons believe that, and they shudder. Like simply having knowledge about God doesn't mean that you have a real faith. And so if what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us, then does that mean that simply the knowledge that we get is the most important thing about our faith? Is it simply what you believe that matters the most? Well, I want to evaluate for just a second some things that Jesus said. Because Jesus would walk around and he would find people exactly where they are with no prerequisites, with no prior qualifications of having anything necessary to actually follow him. And he would go up to them and he would see them where they were and he would say things to them and invite them to have a faith in him. And so we see this happen with two guys specifically who were fishermen. One of them, his name's Simon Peter. And so he would walk up to him, and here's what we think Jesus said. I think this is what sometimes in our minds we think is required to actually be a Jesus follower or to have a faith in Jesus. Is this: come and believe in me, Jesus said. But did you know that's not what he said? He didn't say believe in me. And sometimes we act like what Jesus is saying, and maybe this is what Brian was worried about, is that Jesus said, come and learn about me. Come and fill your brain with knowledge, because that's the beginning of faith. So come and fill your brain, and I want you, Jesus is saying, I want you to come learn about me. But he never said that. He never said, come and learn about me. And maybe this is the place we get messed up or we get crossed up, or that people think like in some way actually you have to attend church every single time, and if you don't, then you don't have a faith. And this is why for so many people, maybe some of you, maybe your parents, maybe your friends, maybe other people who used to go to Inside Out, that whenever the four walls of this building and of this room went away, that all of a sudden their faith went with it, because we think that Jesus said, so come and attend church for me. That's what I need you to do to have a real faith in me. No. Jesus never said any of these things. Jesus looked at the people exactly where they are, and he invited them to have a real faith that would grow them up to find the more and better life that he wanted for them. Like if you've ever thought about following Jesus and you've given it, I don't know, any kind of thought, any kind of question, any kind of inkling to like, maybe. Can I tell you one of the greatest reasons why you should consider following Jesus? Because it says that what Jesus came here to do is to give you a more and better life than you could ever dream of. And if I ask every one of you right now, whether you are a rising freshman about to go into high school, but you're already an Inside Out, or if you're a rising senior, can't wait to be done with high school, every one of us would say that you're not going to wake up tomorrow and think, I can't wait for today to be awful. Yep, it's going to be great. Give me as much mediocre as possible. That's what I'm here for. Like, no. Every one of us, every one of you want the more and better life than you could ever dream of. And Jesus wants that for you as well. And he offered it to these people he went up to. And so he went up to them and he beckoned them to have a real faith in him. And here's what he said. He said, come and follow me. But the best part about who he said it to is that the people that he went after were the JV intellectually. Like they weren't in all the AP classes. They didn't have a 4.75 in coming out of high school. They weren't already juniors in college the moment they graduated. If that's you, congratulations. I don't know how you do it. I was not me. But it also wasn't these people. There wasn't a knowledge base that you had to have before you could follow Jesus. He simply went to them, and they saw who he was. They saw what he was about. They knew something was different, and they knew something was real. And so what you need to understand first to debunk that first idea that maybe if you don't have enough knowledge, you can't get close, and Jesus isn't inviting you close, or that it's a disqualifier, is that you can know a little. You can know a very little about Jesus, but have a real faith in him. And this happens because of experience. This is what I've come to learn, that when I went through the roller coaster of life, when all my emotions were determining everything I was feeling, and you're like, yeah, that's never me. I'm like, well, I cried all the time, okay, guys? That's who I was. And so every time I was broken up with and I became an embarrassment, I've literally apologized to friends how I acted after I was broken up with. That happened over and over and over and over again. You'd think I'd learn. I didn't. So you can go through the roller coaster down, or you can go to IO Daytona and have this massive mountaintop experience and be like, this is the greatest thing ever. It's so easy to worship Jesus. I could do this all day. As you run through those roller coasters, and then your faith starts to get real, and you start to learn more, you start to figure out how to live this life for Jesus, what it does is it gives you this foundation. So now the highs can still feel super high, but when that faith sets in and it becomes real in your life, now the lows aren't so low. Now your circumstances don't affect your joy. Now I'm not taken out just because she wants to be a jerk and go date my friend. Maybe you shouldn't do that. But that's how I acted for so long. But whenever you get that, whenever you have that anchor, a foundation of faith, what you start to see, and if it's you in the room, you would be able to tell people, listen, faith works. Like I can go through anything in life, but because of the real faith that I have, I see that it works. It works for me. Not only does it make me better at life, but man, it makes life so much better whenever I have this real faith in Jesus. It's an experiential thing, this idea of follow me. But here's the problem. So many of us, and it doesn't matter, this is the first time I've ever been to BBIO, because every single IO that I've gone to, it's the same for all of you. No matter what neighborhood you live in, whatever area you live in around Atlanta, I could talk to anyone in your generation who wants to show up to church. Here's the problem. The problem is that we come to things like this, and you listen to bearded guys like me, or some incredibly smart woman like Lauren, and all these people are going to sit here and tell you these truths about Jesus. But for so many of us, we hear and we are interacted with and we face the reality of truth. And then we walk back into the rest of our life Monday through Saturday and never live like it's real. We never apply it. We never anchor it to our faith. And so our faith remains shallow. Our faith remains elementary. Our faith remains stuck. And James talks about this as well. He talks about the idea of the knowledge that you learn, the things that you hear, and what you have to do with them. Because if you just simply listen to it, but never actually go and apply it, it never becomes real. Here's how he says it in chapter 1 of his letter to the church about how to live this life for Jesus. He says, anyone who listens to the word, anyone who listens to what Jesus says, anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says, it's an active nature to this. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror, or her face, okay? Anyone who looks in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. It says, but whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom. And the language of that can be like the perfect law. What does that mean? The rules I got to follow? No. The freedom that comes from following Jesus. The freedom that comes in your life from forgetting that you've got to actually try to do this on your own and surrendering to the fact that he did it for you. The perfection of all the law, all the difficulty that comes with following Jesus, all the things that caused my friend Brian to say like, nah, I'm out. Because he thought it was going to be too tough, or he'd have to do too much, or he'd have to know enough. All these bars and prerequisites that we sometimes can put in our faith that keep us from a real faith. What James is saying is when you See Jesus. And then you learn how much he loves you. And you learn the reality of grace. And how Jesus loves you so much that he wants to save you exactly as he finds you. When you understand that reality of grace, that you don't have to do anything to make him love you. You don't have to meet any bar to actually be someone who can choose to follow him. When you understand the reality, when you look into the face of Jesus and what he's done for you, and you say, that's what I want. I want that more and better life that you want for me. I want to learn how to actually follow you. When you do this, and then you continue in it, you continue in that perfect law of following him, of loving one another the way that he has loved us. When you continue in it, not forgetting what they've actually heard, but doing it, putting it into practice. These type of people, they will be blessed in what they do. And so then the forewarning that he gives at the beginning of this little section, 2 verses earlier, here's what he says. So, here's your thing. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. So you can listen to someone at camp. You can listen to someone at VR. You can listen to someone on a Sunday. You can listen to Heath all day long. You can listen to Lauren all day long. You can listen to me every once a year. I don't know, but whatever it is. You can listen and hear the truth, but until you put it into practice and you don't just leave it here in this room or leave it in your small group, but it changes the way you live, then you're actually, A, not changing anything about what you believe about God. Because if you believe that he's trustworthy, then you'd trust him. And if you trust him, then you'd follow him. And if you want to follow him, then you're going to do what he says. So not only are you not changing what it is that you believe about God, but you're also not having a real faith. It's fake. It's a bumper sticker you put on the bio of your social media. Jesus follower, it's not real. Until you make it your own. And so it is very possible that just a little bit of faith can allow you to have something very real in your life. It's very possible that even just a little bit of knowledge can make you so attracted to the reality of Jesus that you're like, I want that. I don't want to play the games anymore. I don't want to feel fake anymore. I want to find the more and better life that he wants for me. So while faith may begin with knowledge, here's what you need to know. Faith begins in knowing, but it grows in doing. Don't merely look in the mirror and then forget what you look like as soon as you turn your head away. Don't merely listen to the words we say or the things your small group leaders tell you in small group or the encouragement or the advice or the wisdom they give you and then turn around and be like, maybe, I don't know. There's truth to this. And the way you can know there's truth to this is because whenever you live it out, you see that your faith works. But it's actually a double entendre. It's a really big word. Come with me now. There's two meanings to the idea of faith works. Because not only does your faith work whenever it becomes real for you, but then you also start to see that faith, it works. It doesn't sit by passively. It doesn't sit there and never apply it. Your faith has to be active, or else it's not faith at all. James will go on to say that faith without works is dead. It doesn't exist. It's a bumper sticker for the culture. So faith works for you when you live it out. But then when you actually live it out, you'll see that your faith has to work. It has to be active. It cannot be passive. Because when Jesus invites you to faith, he invites you to follow him. And if I just stay exactly where I am while he's going a certain direction and I never follow him, it's not active and it's not real. So when he says go, I go. And when he says don't, I don't. And when he says this is what's best, I trust him. And even though I don't want to do it at times because of how it makes me feel or what I'm not able to do because of what I want to feel, it doesn't matter. Because I believe that what he says is best for me. Because he said he wants me to have the more and better life than I could ever dream of. So if what comes into our minds when we think about God, that knowledge of God, if it's the most important thing about us, then am I truly believing that Jesus is worth following? Because if he is, then you'll start to do what he says. So I can keep talking to you about this idea, the reality of what it looks like to follow Jesus. But what Lauren did last week I thought was absolutely incredible because it's so much better to be able to hear from your perspective. And so I want to invite my guy Tyler out here. Tyler. There he is. Y'all give it up for Tyler one time. So Tyler is obviously a student here at Brownsbridge, just like you, and this is something that he's been able to apply to his life to figure out, and he has unlocked some things in his story that I think can be incredibly helpful for you. So Tyler, hey man.
How's it going?
Tyler, what grade are you in?
I'm a 12th grader.
Let's go. Is that weird to say because you're just now starting as a senior?
Oh, boy, is it. It is really weird.
It's fine. It's fair. And what school do you go to?
I go to Forsyth Central High School.
Forsyth. All right, this is me learning. Who goes to Forsyth Central? Aren't there like 7 high schools in here? Okay, that's a decent amount. Awesome. So man, first, how long you been coming to Inside Out? How long you been involved in this?
I actually looked up the date last night. I've been coming to Inside Out since June 3rd of 2017.
So for a minute.
Oh, yeah, quite a minute. I've been here since 7th grade, and I haven't stopped coming.
That's awesome. So Brownsbridge in 7th grade, you did transit, then you moved up to Inside Out.
Yep.
That's cool. I would love for you to just drop some wisdom bombs on them, blow their minds, because they're waiting for it. And I'd love to know at the beginning, what are some of the ways that you have seen in your life, whenever you put this thing into practice, how have you seen your faith work in your life?
So at the walk freshman year, I had some trouble with my faith, and I had skepticism in my heart as to what my faith really meant. And there was a message at the walk that talked about skepticism and how you can deal with that, and not really deal with it, but how you can turn that into a stronger faith. And when I went to that message, it spoke to me, and it was very powerful, and it showed me how I can turn my skepticism into something that benefits my life and strengthens my faith and allows me to do good.
So you're able to take the questions that you had, and it actually drew you closer instead of pushing you further away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish my friends had the same wisdom that you did when they were in high school. I wish I did in a lot of ways. Now, if you could go back, you're about to be a senior. If you could go back to yourself, who's about to be who's rising freshman in the room? Rising freshman?
My brother is. He's in this room somewhere. I don't
Call
know.
him out. Call
Hey, Joe.
him
There he is,
out.
right there.
There we go. Good job. Rising sophomores. Anyone already have their keys if you're a rising sophomore? You getting them soon? A little driver's license, a little learner's license. Good job. It's terrifying. We're all scared. Any rising juniors? Rising juniors? Good. Okay. Yeah, upperclassmen. Good job. Okay, and then where are all the rising seniors? In the front. Let's go. Lead the way. All right. So, Tyler, if you could go back and talk to yourself, you were probably smaller, 15-year-old, still figuring it out self. If you could go back to yourself before freshman year or even sophomore or junior year, and you could talk to yourself about something, about how to actually live out this faith and make it more active and what it could do for you, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I would tell myself to kind of think about the skepticism that I had and these feelings of what actually is going on. And I would find a way to dig into those feelings, dive into them, and find a way to turn that into something powerful and something that can benefit those around me through building that foundation, like you said. Your faith is like a roller coaster. So when you're at that low, and when you're getting deep into your your thoughts and your beliefs, that foundation that you build at the very bottom of that roller coaster can only help you up. And what I would have told myself is, instead of waiting for something to happen, I could have done something about that and built that foundation myself.
That's awesome. There's an agency that you have.
Yeah.
You get to choose. That's the best part, is that you get to choose this.
Yeah.
No one did it for you. You may have had a great small group leader, great small group, great friends, but you got to choose to do that. Yeah. So at that moment at the walk, was there anything specific that was like a catalyst for you to say, all right, now I'm ready to make this real?
Well, when they spoke about something that was near dear in my, well, not near and dear, but something that was prevalent in my heart in that skepticism. And they addressed that so specifically that I felt like they were talking directly to me. And it
Hey,
made
watch.
me feel.
Anyone ever felt it before? Like whatever they're saying on stage, like,
Yeah.
dang, how do they know my
Yeah.
secrets? That's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really powerful, and it spoke to me, and it
Yeah.
turned me into who I am today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then have you been able to walk alongside other people? Is there someone who encouraged you
Oh,
along
boy.
the way?
Well, I met my best friend in the entire world, Ethan Stiff. He's not here today. He's on vacation, but some of you in this room know him. I met him the first day I ever came to this church, and we have been hanging out ever since. We've been sharing our beliefs, and we've been sharing our faith with each other ever since. We've been like this the entire time. And he introduced me to serving here in 8th grade in Upstreet.
Awesome.
And it has been nothing but beneficial to my life ever since. And not only Ethan, but I've chosen to surround myself with people that not only help me with my faith, but will choose to socialize with me outside of a church environment or outside of a school environment. And
Yeah.
they're sitting right down here.
Yeah. There we are.
These are my ride or dies right here. So,
That's awesome.
you know.
But so what you just said is super wise. Because the reality is, whenever we start trying to live out this faith, what happens often is we stumble or we fail or something doesn't go as we expected or a circumstance from the outside comes in and we're like, I don't know what to do with this. And then our default is to go off by ourselves and start to feel isolated. But you surrounded yourself with people who were also going after it.
Well, I found that me specifically, I don't know about any other people, but I found that it was so much easier to build my faith and build that trust in God when I surrounded myself with people who were trying to do the same. And when I was trying to do that, by myself, like freshman year and before that, it was so hard to be able to dive into those feelings and keep building my faith. And when I joined a small group here, it catalyzed it and it sprung up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, one of the things that we love for Inside Out, this is for all of Inside Out, and it's what you're doing right now, is we really believe that this is something that's best when it's not just for you, but it's something that's by you. We want you to feel like you can have a sense of ownership, both of your faith and of this ministry, of this entire place. And that's, I think, happening by having Tyler up here talking, but it's also something that all of you could do. So in your mind, Tyler, cast some vision for us. What do you think could happen in this place and in our world, in our circles? What do you think would happen if more students were able to live out a working and active faith?
Well, if these people were able to act out a working faith, that would do nothing but strengthen the bond and the trust between all the small groups here. And not only in these small groups, but in everybody in this room, there would be some sense of trust between every single person. Even if you don't have that friendship or that bond with them, you're still able to trust them because they're in this room, they're listening to what you're saying, and they're willing to come here week after week and listen to the message and worship and talk about God for hours.
Yeah. Now, this is, I think, what maybe some people are feeling. Was there ever a moment when you were trying to figure out how to do this that you felt like you didn't know enough, or you felt like you were nervous, or you were apprehensive? You talked about your skepticism to actually choosing to follow Jesus. Was it ever scary? Were you ever nervous about doing that?
It was really scary until I met these people down here who helped me through my faith. It was terrifying to go and look into my own head and see all these intrusive thoughts and these areas of my mind that were not the greatest. And it scared me every single time I try to go in there and see what actually is going on and how I can flip that around. And that lasted for so long until in Daytona of last year, we had one-on-ones with our small group leaders, and they really helped me out. They just did nothing but help me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the encouragement, is that if you want that, if you want to experience the fullness that Tyler's found, you can. And it might be a little scary, and it might be a little difficult, and it might cost you something. But you would say it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's everything. Whenever you allow your faith not only to work, but then you work it, your faith works, it can change everything for you. So, Tyler, can y'all tell him thank you?
I love you, Tyler. I love you.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say to all your friends?
I do want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
So there's a group of people who just came back from a mission trip to El Salvador. They're sitting right down here. And I just want to thank you guys for all the stuff you were able to do down there and how you were able to help all of these people and benefit so many lives.
That's awesome. And then there's also currently, I believe, a trip to Lighthouse that's happening and a trip to Guatemala that's happening right now. Yeah. Like, come on. Guys, that's putting your faith in action. That is actually allowing your faith to work. It's not just letting it sit here. It's doing something with it. That's awesome. Tyler, would you pray for us
Sure.
as we end before we go to small group?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's pray.
Dear Lord, thank you for allowing all of us to come here on this day and talk about how we can make our faith work and how we can use it to benefit those around us. I pray that this week will bring us nothing but joy as we strengthen our faith and tighten these bonds we have with our friends. It's in your name I pray. Amen.